Welcome to this webcast where we're going to talk a bit about the challenges of getting finance in a tougher lending environment. And my guest today is award-winning mortgage broker Andrew Mirams from Intuitive Finance. Welcome, Andrew.
Hi Michael, how are you?
Good, thank you. Now, you've won multiple awards and I've mentioned it only because it's been a very tough environment and I wouldn't like to be on your side of the fence. But how is the world of finance working at the moment?
Thanks, Michael. I like my side of the fence. It's more difficult, it's more challenging, there's more hurdles we need to jump over. But again, the doors are open. Everyone still is able to borrow. It's just what you might have to articulate, what you might be asked, what the evidence of things you might have to provide. And you're going to be asked more questions than you ever have before. That's just the reality of the market we're currently living in.
Now, Andrew, I've recently seen interest rates advertised with a 3 in front of them. Is that really true?
Yes, it is, Michael. If you've got a principal and interest home loan, you will get a 3 in front. And in fact, with a lot of the competitiveness in the investment loan market, now that a lot of the investors have changed their rationale, you can actually get a 3 in front for a principal and interest investment loan too, if you work hard enough at it.
So interest rates are important, but I see these things advertised that they talk about headline rates and comparison rates. So what I see online, and I know that's not the way to go, and I don't recommend people go to the comparison sites online, but some do. What's the difference? What's a headline rate? What's a comparison rate?
Yeah, look, there's a huge disparity in rates. So a headline or a comparison rate really. So a headline rate will just be an actual interest rate. That's the lure. But a comparison rate is supposed to pull in all the fees and charges and everything that could come along the life of that loan. What most of the time you'll see is just headline rates, because that's, as the name suggests, that's the headline grabber. They want to get people to come in and shop on rate. But you should never shop on rate. Rate's not always the most important thing, Michael, as you and I know. It's the outcome. It's actually working to a plan and achieving the total structure. Rate's important because that's what we pay at the end of the day. But you don't want to pay less and get less. Part of your strategy, if you're still in that accumulation phase, is you want to make sure you're always trying to get access to the right amount of money at the right price. It's not the cheapest price that always is going to give you the best outcome.
So it's a combination of flexibility, how much the banks will lend you, their various serviceability criteria, because while there was a big disparity between what one bank would lend and the other in the past, and it's not as big now, there are still some banks that are more open for business than others. We'll look at your serviceability differently, we'll look at your negative gearing differently, we'll look at your bonuses differently, Andrew.
Absolutely. Every lender still has their own policies. They still implement lending to what they deem to be the best way for them. They have different inflows and outflows at different times, so they will offer a rate to attract more business in certain areas. So you've got to be fairly fluid in this market to not get stuck on, I've been at that bank for 20 years. It actually doesn't matter. You could be there for 2 minutes or 20 years. It's the policy and the outcome for you that's most important.
Now that's really interesting because a lot of people feel a loyalty to banks, and I know when you and I were young, you used to get the little bank box, the savings box at the school, and the banks used to nurture you from the beginning and they hoped they had a customer for life. But I think the Royal Commission has shown that the banks don't always have your interest at heart, and I think more people are now willing to shop around. But I read some interesting statistics that people aren't even prepared or don't consider asking, hey, can I get a better rate? They don't shop around much.
It's really scary, I guess, the complacency in us as Australians. It's funny, we'll shop around for a mobile phone contract to save $10 a month, but you won't go back to your bank and ask them for 0.1% difference on $500,000 loan is $500. It's staggering the amount of complacency that people find themselves in, and that's why by and large we're bank agnostic. We're not fussed who we use as long as our clients get the best outcome with what they want to achieve. So again, the rate's important, but it's not the main thing.
So when you choose a loan for a client, what other criteria do you look for?
So we're looking for flexibility. We're looking for access to funds. We're looking for joining their plan, so a client's plans and what they want to achieve in the future, to what we can set up and achieve for them now. So we've always said about buffers and things like that, and having access to more money and not needing it is way more important than because it's often when you need it the most that you're least likely to get it. So setting up with the correct structure, every business that we know generally operates with an overdraft. That's what a finance buffer is in your investing business. So having the access to the funds, having seed capital so you continue your journey, that might mean we set up at one lender this facility, a seed capital facility and a buffer, but use numerous other lenders to go and get access to your next loan because they'll have different assessment criteria. That's what actually strategy is, rather than just rate chasing and trying to find the cheapest loan.
So at the moment there's a big discussion about, do I pay principal interest rates, do I pay interest only? How do you decide, Andrew?
Look, there's many factors. So it's the person's stage of life. It's what they want to achieve. Is it a home? Is it an investment? That's again, there's not one size fits all, Michael. I mean, if there was only one pair of shoes, there'd be a lot of people walking around bare feet, wouldn't there? So you've got to make sure you analyse the person's situation. What stage of life are they in? Is it their home that they're looking to pay principal interest or interest only? As we've discussed in the past, now the lending market has gone full circle. It's now better for you on your borrowing capacity to pay principal and interest because it amortises it over a 30-year loan term. Whereas interest only, whilst is good for your cash flow and whilst you're building and accumulating, it's bad for your servicing because they now analyse you at a grossed up rate, 7.5%, 8%, on the assumption that rates are going to go up. Plus then they do it over the shorter term. So if you've taken a 30-year loan with 10 years interest only, you're assessed over the 20-year repayment term at almost double the interest rate. So that's got to have a negative impact on your borrowing capacity. So that's why, Michael, there's no one way. There's numerous ways. And every client that we see is in a different situation, earning more money, got more or less capital or equity to put in, is in a better or worse situation. You've just got to be really fluid in your thought process to making sure you get the right strategy or outcome for the client that meets their goals.
Andrew, I found a lot of our clients buy a home as well as investment properties, but their first home isn't going to be their last home. So they're considering maybe in the future I'm going to swap that home and it's going to become an investment property. Now I know some of them structure their loans incorrectly, knowing that this is only going to be a 3 or 5 year residence, and they get a bit of a surprise when they have paid down some debt, ended up having equity in their home with capital growth and paying down debt, but they can't suddenly take the money out and make the loan against what will now become an investment property tax deductible. If you set aside a plan with a client to have the current home one day become an investment, how would you handle their loan structures?
Great question. So firstly, you've got to ask the right questions of the clients and articulate what the goal is. So if it's really clear that this is their first property, they want to retain it as an investment because Metropole have bought a great property for them and it's going to be an investment, and then down the track they're going to add on their home, we would never set that up as principal and interest. And the reason being, and let's use some numbers as an example. Let's say you've bought them a $500,000 property. We won't say unit or town, doesn't matter. $500,000 property, and they got their loan at 80%, so a loan of $400,000, and they're paying principal and interest, and they're high income earners, and they're able to keep paying extra payments. Let's say in that 3 to 5 year period, they come back and say, we now want to buy our home. Our property's gone from 500 to 600, and our debt's gone from 400 to 300. That's all the debt that they can use as a tax deductible purpose. Backtrack 3 to 5 years beforehand, if we set them up correctly, we would have done that loan as interest only, allowed the 400,000 to sit there capped at 400, and used an offset account where they would have put all their money into and build up a big cash buffer there. Now that cash is just that. The loan is quarantined because that's still the loan amount of the 400,000. You can take that cash out and the loan is still 400. You haven't paid it off. You've got the net effect of paying it down because you've got an offset account there, but much wiser tax structure.
So in summary, structuring your loans correctly, Andrew, means that you actually, once you convert your home to an investment, have a larger amount of your loan, in fact the whole original loan, as tax deductible. Otherwise it wouldn't be the case. I think it's probably much the same if you're looking as an investor moving forward. You really shouldn't just think transactionally about this loan, but you want to understand how getting this particular property will affect you for the next one and the next one.
Absolutely. It keeps coming back, we keep saying it, but it's the plan. It's sitting with your advisor or advisors and what's your plan? What do you want to achieve? And then can you achieve it? How do you achieve it? And what do we need to do to achieve it? That's the key. If you walk into my office and your office say, I just want to buy a property and get me a loan or whatever, then that's going to be transactional investing. That's you're sort of setting yourself up to fail. If all you do is go in and get as much as you can today and there's no outcome or what do you achieve in the future. But if you have a plan and it's rational and articulated and it can be worked towards, again, we've got to be fluid in how the markets will move and credit cycles will change and so will property cycles where you'll get good capital growth and other years you'll have flatter growth. So you've got to be fluid in your thinking and this changes all the time. But without a plan, I mean, the old saying is you fail to plan, well, you plan to fail to plan.
Sure. So in property and in finance in particular at the moment, it is important to get a good team around you, and it's even more important to plan because any road can get you there, but any road will get you lost if you don't know where you're heading. Andrew, thank you so much for your time. It's going to be an interesting year in the year of finance.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Michael.